name is Shannon Interview and I'm from San Diego, California. Expectations for breastfeeding were basically I was going to do it and there weren't any other options. I came from a long line of breastfeeders, and so I had no reason to believe that I wouldn't also. The reality of my breastfeeding experience was probably similar to the reality for a lot of other women who go in believing that they're going to breastfeed and everything's going to run naturally and magically, and then you end up with a traumatic birth or a baby that just isn't interested. I would summarize my first breastfeeding experience as abysmal. Because it was just devastating because she wasn't gaining weight because I couldn't keep her awake, and nobody was pressuring me to give formula until she really was not gaining, and then they advised that I at least supplement with formula. And finally I got to the point where I just couldn't do it anymore, and I was feeling like such a failure that I was failing, when in reality it was just, if I would have stuck with it, it would have worked out. But the frustration and the stress of being a new mom made it just not compatible with my psyche. I breastfed her exclusively for 2 weeks, and then when she wasn't gaining, I started to supplement with formula, and things still weren't going well. And so I ended up formula feeding and only breastfeeding at night when she would wake up. And so once she started sleeping through the night around 3 months, our breastfeeding relationship ended. With my second child, the idea of breastfeeding, I was a lot more confident, and I knew I was going to do it this time, and things were going to run more smoothly. My first child had survived, so I had more confidence in my mothering skills. Everything did go smoothly until he was about 3 months old, when he hit a growth spurt, and then I felt like I just couldn't do anything to keep him satisfied, and so I ended up starting to supplement with formula, and then once we started supplementing, then it was just downhill from there as far as breastfeeding was concerned. My third one, I was hell-bent on breastfeeding, and I was going to do whatever it took to make it work. And so it went a lot more smoothly than with the first two, but there were still some initial struggles with breastfeeding. But I was able to breastfeed her until she was about 22 months old. The feeling of breastfeeding is something that is really indescribable. Oftentimes you'll hear moms say that it hurts or there's pain involved, etc. And it's true that there is pain involved in the beginning, but it's because the latch isn't correct. And once you get all of that fixed and everybody knows what they're doing, and that's the thing, like they think that babies come out knowing what they're supposed to be doing, but babies don't know anything, and neither do you. And so you're both sitting there trying to help each other figure this out. And so of course there's going to be some pain involved in the process, but once all the pieces get put together, there is no pain. I wasn't expecting breastfeeding to be as difficult as it was, especially with the first two. I don't know that I stuck with it long enough for it to get easy, because everybody that has breastfed will tell you, if they're honest, that the first 2 to 6 weeks are the most difficult, and once you get past that, it's smooth sailing. But so many women don't have that expectation that it's going to be difficult, and so they give up before they even get to the smooth sailing part, and I would say I fell into that category. I would advise other moms to get involved in a breastfeeding support group or La Leche League, or maybe find a lactation consultant before your baby is born. That way, once your baby's born and you're stressed, if you are stressed, you will already have some references that you can draw on, and people that you can call to let you know, hey, yeah, this is normal or this isn't normal. The one thing I would say to somebody who's thinking about breastfeeding is that it's worth it. Any amount of breastfeeding is better, or breast milk for your baby is better than none at all. And the effort that you put into it, especially in those early stages, is well worth it. And I would suggest that you stick with it, because years later, if you don't, you do regret it. So that's something that people don't tell you either. They make it seem so simple. Oh, you can just formula feed. Yes, you can, and it's a real simple fix at the time, but years later, looking back, you do regret not sticking with it. Being a lactation consultant, I had a lot of questions or concerns regarding milk production. The things that I hear often is that my family doesn't produce enough milk, or at 3 months I always dry up with every single one of my children. I always have. Generally, supplementing with formula is what causes a woman's milk to dry up, because the more you supplement, the less milk you make, and the less milk you make, the more you panic and go, oh, I got to give more formula. And so it's like this vicious cycle where you give more and more formula and your body produces less and less milk. The most difficult thing about breastfeeding was just having confidence in myself and my ability. I would say what I didn't like about breastfeeding was the initial first few weeks, just trying to get everything together. Everybody's learning what they're supposed to be doing and just getting into a rhythm. Looking back, I don't think that I didn't like it, but when you're in the middle of it is when you're feeling like this is never going to end. But just like everything else, it does, and then you look back on it fondly. Breastfeeding was totally worth it, and sometimes I look back or I see new babies and I think, oh, I want to have another one just so I can do it again, which is funny because when you're in the middle of it, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know how much longer I can do this. And then, but it's like a love-hate almost. I don't know if you want to put that in there.